Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something completely mind-blowing, the sheer scale of the greatest fortunes ever amassed. When we hear the word wealth today, right away we picture modern tech billionaires, right? But we're going to zoom way, way out, past what we consider rich today, to answer one ultimate burning question. Who is the actual richest person to have ever lived? Just think about the gap between a normal, everyday salary and Elon Musk's $500 billion empire. It's practically incomprehensible. He's literally the first person in human history to hit this staggering mark, mostly driven by his companies like Tesla and SpaceX. Honestly, trying to wrap our heads around this level of wealth using everyday math, it just doesn't work.
So, to give you a true sense of the scale, if you wanted to actually match Musk's fortune earning an average salary, you would need to work for 30 million years. 30 million! That puts you halfway back to the era of the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, just let that sink in for a second.
And it gets crazier. Every single second that ticks by right now, Musk earns about $3,000. In less than 6 minutes, he rakes in enough to buy a dream house and a luxury car. But here's the wild part. Even though he is definitely the richest person alive today, he might not actually be the richest of all time. Section 1. Elon Musk and the scale of wealth. Let's set our baseline.
You see, the crucial point here is that Musk's wealth is entirely tied up in shares of his various companies. It's super volatile, and it depends 100% on market trust. Unlike some of the historical heavyweights we're going to talk about, he doesn't have some giant vault filled with gold coins or physical cash. His net worth is an estimated value, and it rises and falls every single day based on the stock market.
Which brings us to Section 2, Kings of Cash and Liquidity. This is a completely different ballgame. Take Pablo Escobar, for example. He amassed an inflation-adjusted fortune of roughly $30 billion. In just a decade, he transformed an illegal product into one of the most profitable networks on the planet, making him the absolute, undisputed king of pure physical cash. But having all that paper money creates a sheer physical burden that is almost hard to believe. Because Escobar didn't rely on stocks or banks, his operation literally spent $1,000 a week just on rubber bands. Yep, just to bundle up the endless stacks of bills. Actually, he had so much physical money lying around that he routinely lost $2 billion a year simply because the cash rotted away, got ruined by humidity, or was quite literally eaten by rats in storage. There's even a famous story where, while on the run, he burnt $2 million in cold hard cash just to light a fire and keep his family warm. Crazy, right? All right, Section 3, Giants of Industry and GDP. Let's look at the industrial age. Think about John D. Rockefeller. This guy controlled 90% of U.S. refined oil, completely dwarfing Elon Musk's current economic footprint. By 1913, Rockefeller held a fortune equal to a staggering 2% of the entire United States GDP. Adjusted for inflation, that reaches an estimated $631 billion. He didn't just amass money. He standardized processes, controlled prices, and basically laid the entire foundation for modern corporate power. And then there's Henry Ford. He didn't just accumulate wealth, though he did reach about 1.3% of the US GDP. He actually engineered a middle class. By rolling out the assembly line, doubling worker wages, and cutting the workday down to 8 hours, he slashed the assembly time of the Model T to just an hour and a half. And the price? It plummeted to $290. Ford set it up so his own workers could afford to be his best customers, essentially birthing the modern daily routine of suburbs and commutes. A real game changer. Meanwhile, steel magnate Andrew Carnegie, another absolute titan of industry, shifted the entire paradigm of wealth accumulation. After building a fortune equivalent to 1% of the US GDP, he decided he didn't want to die as the richest man alive. Instead, he turned professional philanthropy into a moral duty for capitalists, funding 2,500 public libraries and famously declaring, "A man who dies rich dies in disgrace." Moving on to Section 4, Financial Networks and Political Power. This is wealth that transcends borders. So the Rothschild family essentially created the world's first multinational banking network. By setting up 5 brothers in major European cities, they used incredible communication networks. We're talking private, synchronized couriers, encrypted codes, and even carrier pigeons to move financial data faster than European armies could even march. They financed wars, they financed coronations, and they amassed a family wealth estimated today to be anywhere between $300 and $600 billion. Now jump back a few centuries earlier. A German banker named Jakob Fuger essentially purchased political power by funding the Vatican and the Holy Roman Empire. He lent money on such a massive scale that he secured mining monopolies all across Europe. His financial moves were so huge, they even led the Pope to sell indulgences just to repay him, which, by the way, completely outraged Martin Luther and literally sparked the Protestant Reformation. Talk about impact. But get this, he also created a subsidized housing project way back in 1521, and the rent there remains just 88 cents a year even today.
Let's dive into Section 5, Emperors and Absolute Economic Control. You absolutely have to consider the story of Mansa Musa, the emperor of Mali. He controlled mines that produced almost half of the entire world's gold at the time. During his 1324 pilgrimage to Mecca, he brought along tens of thousands of people and 80 camels loaded to the brim with gold. He handed out so much wealth along the journey that he accidentally crashed regional markets. His mere presence devastated local economies through a massive inflation crisis that took 12 whole years to recover from. Just wow.
And we see a totally unprecedented scale of wealth with Caesar Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. He personally owned Egypt, literally, as a spoil of war. Its mines, its granaries, its taxes, all his personal property. Historians estimate that he directly controlled a staggering 5% of the entire global economic output. To put that into perspective, in today's terms, that kind of absolute economic control translates to roughly a $5 trillion fortune. 5 trillion.
When we look across history, absolute rulers from King Solomon, who reportedly pulled in 666 gold talents a year, all the way to Tsar Nicholas II, they possessed a type of omnipotent wealth. I mean, Nicholas II legally owned the land, the mines, the banks, and the armies across a sixth of the planet. That's equivalent to about $300 billion today. It's a type of total centralized control that modern legal systems just don't even allow anymore.
And finally, Section 6, the true meaning of wealth across time. So what does this all mean? Well, being the quote-unquote richest is entirely relative. Absolute wealth doesn't really exist in a vacuum. As we've seen throughout this explainer, each of these historical figures dominated a completely different metric of wealth based on the rules of their specific era. Musk wins in absolute numbers, Escobar takes it in pure physical cash, Rockefeller in GDP dominance, Augustus in global economic control, and Ford in how he altered the daily lives of millions. But I want you to consider this context before we wrap up. Despite Mansa Musa's mountains of gold or King Solomon's legendary temples, they lived in a world without electricity, without the internet, without modern medicine. They couldn't just pull a smartphone out of their pocket to instantly access all human knowledge like we do. Which leaves us with a really fascinating thought. With all the baseline comforts and technologies we completely take for granted today, is the poorest person living in the modern world technically richer than the wealthiest emperor of the past? Something to think about.